Hello, everyone. Welcome to Barca News. It is January 15th, 2024, and Xavi Hernandez, through his entourage, is leaking to the press that the reason the team is not performing well is due to the lack of talented signings. Also, I have all the possible names that the club are currently considering as possible replacements for Xavi Hernandez. And finally, it's been revealed that Barcelona are looking to sign Lucas Bergvall during this winter transfer market. We have a lot to discuss, so let's begin. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the channel. My name is Mo, and this is Barca News' live podcast. I know I used to call it a live stream, which was on Mondays and Wednesdays at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But lately, I've been doing a lot of live streams instead of posting videos because I haven't had enough time to film, edit, then upload. So instead, I've been doing short live streams to bring you the news. So instead, on Mondays and Wednesdays, instead of calling it a live stream, I'm going to be calling it Barca News' podcast. Now, just like the live streams before, during these podcasts, I'll do a segment of news, then I'll head to the comment section, read you guys' comments out loud, answer any questions, and get a discussion going. Now, for those of you who will be watching this podcast once it ends and want to skip through the discussion, I will be adding timestamps in the description and chapters in the timeline so you can skip through it. And having said that, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment. Now, let's begin because there's a lot of news coming out of Barcelona today after that humiliating defeat at the hands of Real Madrid in the Spanish Super Cup. There's been a lot of news coming out of Barca camp. So I got all that news for you. It's starting with Xavi's excuse for the team's poor performance, which is the lack of signings and the lack of talent on the squad. Now, I did a video earlier today talking about everything that's coming out of Camp Barca as far as Xavi. There's been a lot of talks about directors wanting him sacked. Of course, Laporta still maintains faith in Xavi, but this faith or this trust in Xavi is not completely, it's not infinite. Xavi is on thin ice, and these upcoming few days and weeks will be very critical towards his future. If you want to hear exactly what's going on within the club and within the locker room, make sure you check out that video. But since there's been so much news talking about Xavi and what might happen or might not happen to him, his entourage have began leaking to the press his cheap excuse, because that's the only way I can put it. Now, it seems that Xavi Hernandez's excuse is that the reason why the team is not performing, the reason why he cannot compete with Europe's giants is because the club have not made him the signings that he asked for, and that he doesn't have the talented players that he would like on his squad, and that's what's preventing him from competing. Now, I got to say this is very, very, very troubling because, first of all, this is not true. The reason the team is not performing is not because the signings that Xavi or the club have made for Xavi. The team is not performing because the team has absolutely no identity, no style of play, no kind of tactics, absolutely nothing. And I've talked about that again in my earlier video, so I don't want to go into too much detail because I don't want to sound repetitive. But the reason why the team is not performing is because they're not playing football. It's 11 individual players on the field trying to figure out what's happening. It's not due to signings. We can sign anybody tomorrow. We can bring Mbappe. We can bring Haaland. The team is still going to underperform. They might score a little bit more goals, but they're still going to underperform because as long as there's no style of play, no identity, the team is still going to keep underperforming. So first of all, this is not true. Second of all, it's really troubling because if Xavi is blaming it on the signings, that means he has no solution for this problem. That means he's just chucking it up to, I don't have signings, so that's it. I'm done here. There's no self-reflection. There's no self-analysis. Let's see what's not working. Let's see what's going wrong. Let's try to fix it. No, instead, he's, okay, here's my excuse. That means I'm scot-free. It's not my problem. It's the club's problem. which not only is it troubling because it means that he has no solution to the problem and his only solution is to bring in more players, but it's troubling because it's also insulting. Insulting because Barcelona have sold club property in order to bring Xavi signings. John Laporta and the board of directors have had to put money from their own pockets so they can bring him signings. So it's insulting to the club. It's insulting to the board of directors that have done so much work, signing new sponsors, making budget cuts, selling the club's property, putting money out of their own pocket so they can sign players for Xavi and for Xavi to turn around and say, well, you guys didn't sign anything or didn't bring me anything I wanted, and that's why we're underperforming, is very, very insulting to everybody involved. But it's also insulting to the players who are in the squad because, yes, the club might not have signed every single player that Xavi asked for, but the club does have Gavi. The club has Pedri. The club has Frankie. The club has Ronald Araujo. The club has Alejandro Balde, Lamine Yamal, Fermin Lopez. They brought him Kunde. They brought him Christensen. They brought him Robert Lewandowski. They brought him Ilkay Gundogan, someone who just won a treble. So it's very insulting to everybody. It's insulting to the fans. And I'm honestly very, very disappointed with this cheap excuse, because that's the only way you can put it. It's a cheap excuse that Xavi is currently using. And no, it's not a problem of signings again, because it's a problem that the team has absolutely no identity. And also, let's look at Girona. They have a budget of 60 million euros, and yet they're first in La Liga, and they completely humiliated us. So what's their excuse? How come they can perform with a bunch of nobodies? Meanwhile, we have a team full of stars, and Xavi yet says he wants more. Anyways, let's head to the chat section. Let's get a discussion going. Read your comments, answer any questions, and then we will talk about the possible names that the club are currently considering as possible replacements for the Spanish coach. All right. Let's see. Touch me, Sam. Your name is very troubling, my friend. Says you're talking about the end of the season, right? I'll tell you in a little bit. I don't want to do any spoilers, so let's go in. So let's keep going. KF says, bro, I must tell you that I like your content. Real big up for you. Keep it up. Sweden, free Palestine. Thank you, KF, for your comment. Thank you for watching. That's amazing that you're watching from Sweden. Speaking of Sweden, I have news about Lucas Bergvall. So thank you. And yes, free Palestine. And let's see. Manuel says, can you talk about what Pep says? I prefer listen to a coach than you. The players need to meet the coach halfway. I don't know. Do you want me to call Pep and ask him what his opinion is? I don't quite understand your comment. Anyways, KF says, Xavi doesn't know how to use what you have. He's a stonehead. He won't let go of his vision, formation, and tactics to try something that suits the team. Right. The problem is I don't think he has tactics. I mean, Xavi, or maybe he just doesn't know how to implement them, because when Xavi speaks in the press conferences, he explains how he would like the team to play pretty well, but then we don't see that on the field. So there's definitely a disconnect from what Xavi says to what we see on the field. And it's not that Xavi doesn't know what he's talking about, because he obviously does. He came up through La Masia. He was in Barcelona for most of his career. He played under Pep. He played under Luis Enrique. He's one of the best, if not the best midfielder in the history of the club. He's one of the best midfielders in the history of the entire world. So he obviously knows football. He understands football. He sees football like no other does. But there's a definite disconnect from what he knows and what he says versus what we see on the field. And that tells me that as much as Xavi might know about football, I don't think he knows how to implement his ideas. And that, of course, is a problem, because you could be the most genius tactician in the world, but if you cannot implement your tactics, then what's the point, right? Let's see. Touchby says, no, Mo, be fair. The signings the club made were not the players he wanted specifically. It's not an excuse. It's not an excuse. Again, Girona have a budget of 65 million euros. We have a budget of 700. And they are killing it under the right coach. You telling me that Gavi, that Pedri, that Frankie, that Araujo, that Balde, that Christensen, that Kunde, that Lewandowski, that Joao Felix, that Joao Cancelo. You're telling me all these players are not enough? These are some of the best players in their position in the entire world. You're telling me that's not enough? Yeah, sure, we do have some deadbeats on the team. Yeah, we have Alonso. Yeah, we have people like Ferran, like Rafinha, who might be good in a mid to bottom table team, but not good enough for Barca. But that's not an excuse. We should not be playing as bad as we're playing. We cannot beat Almeria, who are the worst team in La Liga and who have not won a single match this season. And you're telling me that it's because we have Ferran, when we have all these stars on our team, when we have people like Lamine, who's one of the most promising players. Come on, that's just a cheap excuse. Anyways, let's get back to the news because, again, a lot of news coming out of Camp Barca today. And now we have to talk about the possible names that Barcelona are considering. Now, as I said before, and as I said in the video earlier today, Laporta still trusts Xavi. This trust is not going to be indefinite. Xavi is on thin ice. But despite Laporta still trusting Xavi, Barcelona are still considering a list of possible names. And this is something that they've been doing for a while. Not because they didn't trust Xavi before or they had their doubts. This is something that clubs do. Clubs always have to have backup plans. Even if they have a great coach who's winning everything, who they love, who they trust, they got to have a backup plan because coaches leave. Coaches get fired. Coaches resign. Coaches get poached. Coaches retire, etc. I imagine even Manchester City right now, despite having just won a treble with Pep Guardiola and being happy with him, they probably still have a list of possible coaches that they would want to sign if Pep leaves. So Barcelona does have a list. This not means that Barcelona are planning to fire Xavi tomorrow. It's just something clubs do as a backup plan. Now, internal sources have been leaking these names all day. I have gathered these names, and I'm going to give them to you one by one right now. So make sure you stick around because there's a lot of names on this list. Now, the first name as a possible replacement for Xavi Hernandez, and it's the most obvious one, will be, of course, Rafa Marquez, the Barcelona legend, who's currently training Barca Athletic. How do we know this? Well, Joan Laporta actually said it recently to the press. He said if Xavi were ever to leave, that he would like to see Rafa Marquez as the first team's coach. Not only has Laporta said that, but given our economy, given our financial situation, this would make the most sense within the club's finances. This is what we could afford to promote Rafa Marquez from within to the first team, because signing other coaches is going to take a lot of money, which Barcelona does not have. To add to that, I reported, I think it was 2 or 3 days ago, that Barca Athletic had hired Giuliano Belletti as Rafa Marquez's assistant. If you don't know who Giuliano Belletti is, he was a Barcelona player. He scored the winning goal in the Champions League final in 2006. He was Rafa Marquez's teammate. He was coaching the youth in the under-19 team in the Masia or Juvenil A. His job was to develop the young players, and now he has been promoted to Barca Athletic so he can develop the young players at Barca Athletic. But some are starting to speculate that maybe Barcelona have elevated Giuliano Belletti to Barca Athletic. That way they can promote Rafa Marquez to their first team, and Giuliano Belletti can become the Barca Athletic coach. So that's the most obvious option. I have my doubts, just experience-wise. Plus, Barca Athletic are doing much better under Rafa Marquez than previous coach, but I wouldn't say they're doing the best. So I have my doubts, but this would be the most affordable option and the most obvious one. More names on the list. Of course, Pep Guardiola. This would be everyone's option. If they can sign him tomorrow, Laporta had no doubts that he would sign Pep Guardiola tomorrow. What's the problem? It's not going to happen. Pep Guardiola has said he doesn't want to coach Barcelona because of how he was treated in the past. And of course, there's no way Barcelona could afford him and take him away from Manchester City. So what's the second best option? Of course, Mikel Arteta, Pep Guardiola's disciple, if you may. He was his assistant coach. He's learned a lot from him. He's implementing everything that he's learned from Pep successfully, may I say, in Arsenal. So Mikel Arteta would be the second option if we can get Pep Guardiola. But of course, this is another option that's very highly unlikely. Mikel Arteta is making a lot of money in Arsenal, and more importantly, he's building a very successful project at Arsenal. I don't see him wanting to leave that to come to Barcelona. More name, and these names come from when Joan Laporta was the candidate for presidency. But when he was candidate, and some of you might not recall this, but Xavi Hernandez was never Joan Laporta's first option. John Laporta believed that Xavi Hernandez was still not ready to become the first team coach. It was not his first option. And in fact, he was considering, or his two favorite options when he was a candidate, and these are the names that he was throwing around when he was running for presidency, was Tuchel and Hansi Flick. Now, what John Laporta was looking for when he was a candidate and what he wanted to see on the coach to replace Koeman was a German modern coach that comes from that modern German school of thought. And Tuchel and Hansi Flick were John Laporta's two favorite options. These are now not his favorite options, but nonetheless, they are on the list of of coaches that Barcelona are currently considering. Another name that came up when John Laporta was a candidate and is still on the list is, of course, that of Nagelsmann. Again, Laporta was looking for a modern German coach. Tuchel and Flick were his favorite options, but Nagelsmann popped up on his radar because of the good job that Nagelsmann was doing with Bayern Munich. Another name that's on the list of possible candidates is, of course, Imanol Alguacil. He's a Real Sociedad's coach. He's doing a spectacular job with Real Sociedad, very tactically savvy. Real Sociedad are doing not only great in La Liga, but they're playing really good football in the Champions League, and that, of course, has caught the attention of Barcelona. And Imanol Alguacil is a possible option for the club. The only problem is that Barcelona are not sure whether Imanol Alguacil would be someone who would be able to manage the Barcelona locker room, which is full of big egos, big stars, and that's hard to do. If one thing we can get credit Xavi with is that he's done a good job of managing a locker room that was fractured, a locker room that was full of egos, a locker room full of stars who just want to do what they want. He has done a good job with that. Tactically speaking, it's a whole different story. And the fear is that Imanol would not be able to handle the Barcelona locker room. We saw that with Quique Setién. He was good, very tactically speaking, as a coach. But when he came to Barcelona, he was way over his head because he had never managed a big locker room. Another name which Barcelona have the same fear with is, of course, Mitchell, Girona's coach. The guy who is doing absolutely miracles with a tiny, tiny budget of 60 million euros. He's at the top of the Liga with Girona. They're hoping to qualify, of course, to the Champions League. He's someone who, as a Girona coach, belongs to the City Group, which are the owners of Manchester City. Someone who's learning from Pep Guardiola. Someone who's implemented very beautiful Barca-style football in Girona that, of course, has caught the attention of the club. But just like Imanol Alguacil, Barcelona are fearful that Mitchell, yes, might be tactically very savvy, but might not be able to handle such a big locker room or such a star-studded locker room, which is Barcelona. And the last name, and remember this last name because I think we're going to be talking about it a lot, and it's a surprise name which is not on the list or which has not been on the radar of many journalists, and that's Thiago Motta. Now, if you don't know who Thiago Motta is, he's someone who came out through the Barcelona Academy. He spent several seasons in Barcelona. And he is now in the Serie A, and he's the head coach of Bologna. Now, you might say, well, what's the deal with Thiago Motta? Well, Thiago Motta is building a very successful project at Bologna. He came during a very tumultuous time for that club. He did a total house cleaning, getting rid of big stars, of big players in the locker room of Bologna. And he has built a very good, solid project full of very young, promising players. And therefore, he has caught the attention of Barcelona by the way he is managing all these young players, by the way he is developing all these young players, and by the way he's extracting so much out of these young players, having, again, gotten rid of all the big names in that locker room. So very interesting option for Barcelona because that's what we need right now. We have a locker room full of a lot of young and promising players, a lot of teenagers, Pedri, Xavi, Lamine, etc. We have a young project with a lot of potential, and Imanol could be or is seen as a possible option to mold this project the right way, just given how good he is handling the young talent in Bologna. Again, remember this name, Thiago Motta. We're going to be talking about him for some time, and it's a surprising name that only emerged on the scene during these final hours today. All right, I know I've been talking for quite some time. I told you guys this is a long list, but let's go back to the comment section And then we will talk about Lucas Bergvall, which I know you guys are probably tired of hearing him by now because I've been talking about him so much. But news is news, and we got to share, or at least I have to share it because that's my job now. Okay, Ross says, here's a crazy idea. What about Zidane? This might be a little bit controversial for Madrid fans. I know some Madrid fans watch this channel because I see the comments. But I don't think Zidane is a good coach. I think he inherited a Real Madrid that was already established. It was full of great players who had been playing with each other for a while, who they knew how to play with each other, who they had good chemistry with each other. He inherited a winning team. And that's how he was able to win 3 Champions League in a row. Of course, there's a lot of help from the referees. We know all those offsides goals that were never called. We know those PKs that were handed that should have been PKs. We know that, but refereeing set aside, the reason Real Madrid, or I believe the reason Real Madrid were able to win those 3 Champions League is because Zidane had already inherited a team that was established, that was built, that was a winning team, and it was not his doing, right? It's kind of like bringing Pep right now with this young project, having spent 4 or 5 years building it up, making it into a successful team, and then some other coach takes over, and we're like, oh, look, it's this coach. He's the one who did that. It wasn't, right? So I don't think Zidane would be a good coach. Plus, he's a Real Madrid guy, so that alone would be enough for me to say no. Okay, Sean says, before they signed Xavi, I always thought Garcia Pimienta would be the best person to take over, and after seeing what he's doing at Las Palmas, I believe that you will 100% agree with you. And I said that in my earlier videos. Probably none of you guys watched that because, I mean, we're talking about when the channel was first born. I think I was having like 10 views a video. It was insane. But I said that a lot because Garcia Pimienta was a Barça Athletic coach for, I think it was 25 years. He obviously knew La Masia in and out. He knew the Barcelona DNA in and out. And I thought that too. I thought he would be a great replacement for to be the first team coach. Unfortunately, things did not go well, and he ended up getting fired. It's a sad thing, but I do like what he's doing with Las Palmas, getting them promoted to the first division. I think they're 10th or 9th right now. And with the small budget that they have, I agree. All right, let's see. What else? Chess says, hear me out. Get Klopp and get Mbappe. Pull 5 more levers and sell Laporta's pants. We cannot afford Mbappe, okay? Let's be real here. I know a lot of people say, well, Mbappe is going to be free agent. Like, there's no such thing as free in football. He might be a free agent, but all that means is we don't have to pay PSG for him. But we still have to pay him, right? And right now the rumors are that Mbappe wants a signing bonus of 126 million euros. That's freaking insane. There's no way Barcelona could afford that. And even if he didn't ask for a signing bonus, you're talking about he wants a gross salary of 50 million. A net salary of 26, so a gross of 25, 52, which not only can Barcelona not afford that, but those days are over, right? With the new salary structure that Laporta has implemented, where no player could earn more than 10 or 12 million euros net. It's just those days are over. And Barcelona are not going to pay Mbappe the 50 million or 52 million that he wants. And they're definitely not going to pay him the 126 million euros that he's asking for a signing bonus. So Mbappe is not going to happen. Yes, he will be a free agent, but there's nothing free in football, especially when it comes to big stars. Anyways, let's continue because we do have to talk about Lucas Bergvall. And, I'm wearing a yellow shirt. This was by accident, but I guess it worked out. It matches the Swedish jersey. But let's talk about Lucas Bergvall because it's reported now that Barcelona are looking to sign him during this winter transfer market. Now, you might say, isn't that what Barcelona were trying to do? No. The plan for Lucas Bergvall was to be signed in the summer. Now, we all know Barcelona have been tracking the Swedish gem for quite some time. There are plenty of clubs interested in him. There's Manchester United, Inter Milan, Udinese, and Eintracht Frankfurt. They all want to sign him. The club who has offered the most money for him right now is Eintracht Frankfurt, who have offered 8.5 million euros to Jude Garden. Barcelona have offered 6.5, so 2 million less than Eintracht Frankfurt. And despite Eintracht Frankfurt offering more money, Swedish media are reporting that Barcelona are in the lead to sign Bergvall because why? Because the player, his family, his entourage, they all prefer and prioritize going to Barcelona because they believe it's a much bigger club than all the other clubs interested in him, and they believe that that's where he could develop the most, and of course, where his future would be the best. I guess they didn't watch the Real Madrid match. I'm kidding. But anyways, now, the plan for Lucas Bergvall was for Barcelona to sign him in the summer for Barca Athletic so he can develop in Barca Athletic and eventually get promoted to the first team, the same way they're doing with, what's his name, Noah Darvic, with Mika Faye, all these players that Barcelona have signed, very young players who the goal is to develop in the Barca Athletic and then promote to the first team. What's going on now is that Barcelona, of course, have decided to sign a midfielder to make up for the loss of Xavi, who will be out until the summer. Now, Barcelona need to make 40 million euros off the sale of Barca Vision in order to sign a midfielder during this winter transfer market. And of course, Barcelona are looking for a midfielder who has international experience, who's older. When I say older, I don't mean in his 30s, but 25, 26. Someone who can come on day one and fill that role in the midfield. Now, this is becoming more of, it's getting complicated because of the financial fair play rule restrictions and because Barcelona's economic situation. And Barcelona have now decided that if they cannot get the money or they cannot get the financial fair play rule space to sign an experienced midfielder during this winter transfer market, then they will look to sign Lucas Bergvall during this winter for the first team. So again, original plan was to sign Bergvall in the summer for Barca Athletic so he could develop. Barcelona cannot sign a midfielder for this winter, and they will sign Lucas Bergvall for the first team during this winter. Again, this is only if Barcelona cannot sign anyone else, then Lucas Bergvall would be signed this winter for the first team. If not, the plan would remain the same, which is to sign Bergvall in the summer for the Barca Athletic so he can develop and then eventually get promoted to the first team. That's the news. Let's get back to the chat section, and then we'll talk about Mika Faye. I do have a little bit of news about him, but let's get back to the chat section. Let's see. Tim says, wanting to change Xavi without getting proper forwards. We're not wanting to change Xavi. Like I said, Laporta still trusts him. This is just a list that the club has because all clubs have lists of coaches in case their current coach leaves. Java the Hut says, did you hear about what Barca Media said? He said that other Barca YouTubers are dissing Xavi so that you can get more subscribers. He backs Xavi 100%. Yeah. I don't know how you can still support Xavi 2 years in. No identity. No kind of strategy in place. No mechanisms. Absolutely nothing. This team is getting worse and worse, which I've never seen that. Projects usually get better, and if the project sucks or is not working, then the team stays stagnant. So it's either up or straight. With Xavi, it's down. How? I have no idea. It takes really a lot of work to make a team worse, even though the team got reinforced. So it's like you bring in more players, more talent, more time passes, and the team gets worse. How? I have no idea. And if Barca Media, who I don't know who is or she is or whoever is, I've never seen Barca Media, thinks that people are this is Xavi because he wants subscribers, then, I mean, if he wants to keep burying his head in the sand, that's his prerogative. But I'm not doing this to get more subscribers. It pains me to say this because I grew up with Pep Guardiola's, well, actually, I grew up with Rijkaard's Barca. But I saw Pep Guardiola's Barca. I was in love with Xavi, with Iniesta, Busquets, Messi, Jordi, all of them. And to see Xavi's image get destroyed like this as a legend, it pains me, it hurts me. So no, I'm not dissing him because I want subscribers. I've always made it very, very clear in all the comments that I get from people who are like, oh, I don't want to watch your channel. I was like, then don't. Right? I'm just here to give you the news. I'm just here to give you my opinion. If you like it, great. Subscribe, comment, like. If you don't, that's okay. There's other channels out there. That's the beauty of YouTube, right? It's a free market. You can watch what you like. If you don't like it, you don't have to watch it. It's unlike TV programming back in the day where you were forced to watch what they were playing because there was only like 5-7 channels. YouTube is not like that. There's millions and millions of YouTubers. Whoever you like, you can watch. If you don't like, you don't watch. And you know, I don't take it personally, so I'm just here to give you my opinion. If you like it, great. If not, then no. I'm not here to lie to you. I'm not here to gaslight you. I'm not, because that's just not who I am. Anyways, one more, and then we'll get back to Mika Faye, and we'll do a few more comments. But let's look at Igor's comment, who says, out of the ones you've mentioned so far, only Flick makes sense. Others are either bad or not realistic. You are on Nagelsmann, whilst I'm right in this. Oh, okay. I'm honestly not convinced with Flick. But I could see the appeal that he has. I would honestly prefer someone more like Mitchell or Imanol, whose style is resembles more Barca, but more importantly, their style is more fitted to the players that Barca has, right? People like Pedri, like Gavi, like Frankie. These are more the players that would do better under those kind of systems, under Mitchell or Imanol systems. But of course, the fear is the same, right? Are they going to be able to handle a big locker room? Anyways, let's do one more news and we'll do a few more comments and we'll end the live stream. But let's talk about Mika Faye, the 19-year-old Senegalese center back who Barcelona signed from Croatian team Custodia. I hope I said that right. If there's anyone who knows the correct spelling, or I'm sorry, the correct pronunciation, please let me know in the comment section. But let's talk about the 19-year-old Senegalese, because right now his future is not quite clear at Barcelona. And one thing is for sure is Barcelona are completely closing the door for Faye to leave in the winter. So this winter, Faye is not going anywhere. The question is what's going to happen in the summer. And the reason why there's doubts about his future is not because Barcelona are not impressed with him, not at all. All the opposite. Barcelona are very, very impressed with Mika Faye, his talent, his promise, the way he's growing and developing in Barça Athletic. They would love to keep him forever. But the problem is, well, there are two problems. Number one is which center backs are going to leave in the summer. Barcelona right now are overstacked on center backs in the first team. We have Ronald Araujo, Jules Koundé, Andreas Christensen, Íñigo Martínez, Marcos Alonso, Eric Garcia, who's on loan, and of course, what's his name? Shad Riyad, who's also on loan. 7 center backs for the first team. We know Marcos Alonso's leaving. His contract is not getting renewed. We know Barcelona want to offload Christensen because he arrived for free. He has a market value of 40 million euros, so the club can make a lot of money off him. We know Barcelona want to offload Eric Garcia, who also arrived for free, and the club could sell him for 15, maybe 20 million euros. So we're going to have to wait for the summer to see whether Barcelona can make enough space on the first team to promote Faye. The other problem is his agent. His agent is pressuring the club, saying we want minutes in the first team or we're leaving. Again, Barcelona want to keep the player. Barcelona want to clear space for the player, but they're not making any promises as they shouldn't. Barcelona should not promise anyone minutes the same way happened with Abde. Abde was already on the first team. Xavi Hernandez told him that he counts on him, that he wants to keep him on the first team, that he wants to give him minutes, but his agent insisted that you either promise me a certain amount of minutes or we're leaving, and Barcelona said, sorry, we cannot promise anything. You can leave, and they did. And I think that should be Barcelona's stance with every player. This is FC Barcelona. We cannot promise minutes. If you want minutes, you work hard, you train hard, you prove yourself. So the problem is, we'll see whether Mika Faye decides to stay and wait and fight for his spot, or whether he's going to end up want to leave. Because if he does, then Barcelona will have, of course, to accept for him to leave. Because again, this is FC Barcelona, and they cannot promise anyone minutes. If you want your spot, you have to fight for it. And again, and I have to emphasize this, Barcelona want to keep Faye. I cannot emphasize this strong enough, because every time I talk about Faye, I get a million comments. Why does Barcelona want to get rid of him? Barcelona are so stupid. Oh, it's because he's African. And it's like, did you even listen to any word I said? Because I clearly said that Barcelona want to keep him. How are you talking about why does Barcelona want to get rid of him? So again, and I wish I have a big sign says, Barcelona want to keep Mika Faye. So please do not comment asking me why does Barcelona want to get rid of him. because that's not the case. I know I said that, and I'm 100% sure that I'm still going to get comments telling me why is Barcelona want to get rid of him. Anyways, that is it. That is all the news. Let's do a few more comments, and then we will keep going. Let's see. Sarita says, weird to see some people pretending to know more about football than Guardiola himself. Keeping Xavi is the only thing we can do right now. No other coach would want to inherit a team like this. Well, my feeling is that they're not going to get rid of Xavi until the end of the season. It might be the most, the only thing we can do right now, but doesn't mean that's what we should do. Because we've seen that Xavi is not the coach to lead a project. Maybe he's a good transitional coach. Maybe he would be a good coach inheriting a team that's already been established, that's already been built, but he's definitely not a coach to build a project from scratch. All right. KF says, I have seen Lucas Bergvall play, and he is really good. He is something special. First time I saw him on the pitch, I knew he was special. Definitely. Lots of positive reports from Barcelona scouts. This player is promising, for sure. We'll see if Barcelona can sign him. Tashmi says, bro, it took Arteta 4+ years and Pep 6 years for an EPL title. Ups and downs are part of the journey. It's a fact. I agree, and I said this a lot at first when a lot of people were saying Xavi out, and I said no, projects take time. There's a lot of ups and downs in projects. Projects cannot start winning titles right away. I always made the example. I think it took Pep Guardiola 3 seasons for his project to take off. Mikel Arteta, I think he's in his 3rd season right now. So I agree 100%. But where I believe that, or why I think that Xavi is not the proper coach, is because, yes, projects do go up and down. Projects do take time. But as these projects are developing, you start seeing an idea of where this project is headed. You start seeing an identity develop. You start seeing a style of play developing. You start seeing flashes of what that project could look like once it's completed. We haven't seen that in Barcelona. It's been 2 years now. 2 years. That's a long time. And we still have not seen anything. We're not seeing an identity. We're not seeing a style of play. We're not seeing flashes of what this project could be. We're not seeing anything, and that's the problem. So I'm not complaining that why is this project not winning the Champions League? Why this project does not have a 6-tuple by now? That's, of course, delusional. Takes project several seasons to get to that point. But at this point, we're not seeing anything. So if you're not seeing anything, that means there is no project. It's not headed anywhere. So we need to reassess. And we have our first donation of the night. Wait, where did it go? Oh my God, this chat moved on me. And I cannot show it on the screen. Oh, there it is. Perfect. Aesthetic Perfume. Thank you for your donation, sir. He says it's time for Barca to try someone who doesn't come with Barca DNA. We need a new direction. Flick is the guy who would rebuild Barca into a beast. Thank you for your comment. And thank you for your donation, Aesthetic Perfume. And with this, we will end the live podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for your likes, your comments, your subscriptions. I will see you in tomorrow's video. And as always, be Barca.